Hey everyone, this is John from EastCoastArmory.com, and I'm here today with part 3, the final chapter on the 1/16 scale radio-controlled German King Tiger heavy tank. This model here is built for commission and belongs to a private collector. As I often mention in these videos, I frequently take on commission-built projects from models ranging between 1/35 scale and 1/6 scale. For availability and pricing information, that would be best by contacting me through the email address listed below, which is info@EastCoastArmory.com. Like with the other 1/16 scale builds found on this channel, this model here has been broken up into a 3-part video series. In the first installment, we go over the model's original condition, as well as the repairs and the other aspects of the build that went into the model to bring it up to the way we see it here. Part 2, we go over the external detail fittings, as well as the paint and the weathering. And in this video here, part 3, we're going to be taking this thing for an external test drive. So this is the one a lot of people are looking forward to. So if that's you, you're in good company. Just sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. And here we have the tank now outdoors, but before I go ahead and fire it up, I do want to mention something about the recharge system. So at the moment, the model is in this configuration here, and it was actually just recharging. As I mentioned before, the tank does have a recharge jack, and the recharge jack here is your standard Tamiya type jack, and you just plug this into your charger of choice, let the battery charge, and when you're all set, unplug it, and then just stuff it back into the hull, and you're good to go. It has this little tab on it over here, which just makes grabbing it just a little bit easier, and this is again something that comes with these recharge jacks that are offered on the ECA catalog. As also was mentioned earlier on, the model's original battery was replaced twice. The model originally comes with a standard 7.2 battery. However, the owner went ahead and swapped that out with a lithium-ion 7.2, and then we went ahead and swapped that out with a standard type of battery, but with a 5,000 milliamp type rating to it. And this was done because of the potential issue that it had with the Taigen switches. As I mentioned in the previous video, or I should say in the first installment video, the owner had issues where the 7.2s were potentially burning out his switches, so we went ahead and swapped it out with the standard battery that was mentioned in the first video to prevent any sort, or to at least avoid any sort of issues with the switch getting burned out. It's the same battery I use on my own Taigens, and I never had a problem with that ever being a thing, so chances are that's probably what was resulting in that. Either way, with the change of the lithium-ion to a standard 7.2, it used just a standard 7.2 recharge jack like we have here. Over here is the smoke fluid refill. You pull this guy out, unscrew that little screw there, and now you have access to top off the smoke system if required. And then, because the tank does have the vape pen system installed in the turret, if I open up this guy over here, on the inside here there is another little tube that you pull out, and here is the secondary refill tube for the secondary smoke system. Just like with the other ones, the little screw here is just used to keep this thing topped off and prevent any sort of fluid from leaking out. When you're not using it, just tuck it into the tank like so. But you want to keep it in a place where it's easily accessible. Also, if the customer is watching this, you don't want to really use your fingers so much to yank on the thing. It's just held in place on the little top portion over here. It is silicone, so it is held on pretty robustly. However, in order to reduce the risk of potentially yanking it out, I recommend using a tool like a plier or something like this to go ahead and to pull out the tube without any sort of other complications like this. Once you have it hooked like this, you can then just pull it out like I just did here. Then when not in use, just close the hatch and you're ready to go. As for the recharge jack, the tank has been thoroughly recharged off camera, so there's no point in leaving it exposed. So I'm going to go ahead and tuck it into this section right over here. It's easier to do when I'm not filming, of course, and holding the camera, but either way, there goes the recharge jack right there. And then this brings us to, well, the control panel. So on this one here, we have some switches up here. This is all stock Taigen, by the way. This here's your main power switch. This here's your volume switch. The volume switch can be adjusted with your fingers if they're long enough, or if you just have a screwdriver, you can go ahead and adjust it for high and low. Depends on exactly how much noise you want coming out of the speakers. Here we have the radio. The radio is totally stock, as you can see. If anyone's ever worked on or have driven any of the other Taigen or Torro branded tanks, nothing here should be a surprise. So I'm going to first turn on the radio, as I always recommend. I'm going to turn on the switch. Once the tank is powered up, you'll notice that the barrel becomes live and elevates. This is one thing I noticed about this tank with the servo system. Because of the length of the barrel, it tends to cause it to droop. However, once the tank is turned on, obviously power goes into the servo and it basically takes care of that problem. I'm going to go ahead and turn on the tank by hitting the switch over here. This actuates the sound system and actually gets the tank unlocked. This switch over here controls the smoke system. I don't know if you can hear it, but you hear that little, that humming or that whizzing sound. That's the smoke system in actuation. If I go ahead and hit the switch, it's going to stop. See? As for the smoke system, it does have a puffer box to it, and it's also proportional. So the more throttle you give it, the more it's going to output. However, one thing I noticed about these smoke systems, specifically when you're filming outdoors, you don't really get that much volume of smoke. It's not really that visible in this type of environment. However, the system is still there and it does work. It also takes a minute or two for it to heat up, and I could see some smoke coming out right now, but again, it's probably really tricky to see on camera. But as the tank is driven, more likely you'll start to see the thing start puffing away. While the exhaust is heating up, and I actually do see it puffing away, but I'm not sure if it can be seen on camera, this brings us to the secondary smoke system, being the recoil and the smoke simulator. So if I open up the loader hatch, you can see a kill switch on here. Originally this would have been for the airsoft gun, but this has been repurposed for use of killing the secondary smoke system for the vape pen. Right now it's set to on, which is exactly what we need for the demonstration. And also, of course, it has a functional headlight that you can see right here. Before the tank is unlocked, it actually blinks, which is quite standard and is typically what we see on the other RTRs on the market. While also on the bow section takes to the bow NG, and that is actuated with this little button right over here. You just push it down and it's going to start flashing. And that's all there is to that. And this brings us to, well, the main armament. Starting with the elevation, that is done by going down here on the radio. Now, this is just like the standard Taigen / Henlong systems, where it's on a track, where you cannot physically lower and elevate it independently. It has to run through the circuit, as you can see right here. You just hold the thing down, and it's just going to go up and down. Even though this system is servo controlled, it still operates like the older pattern of geared gearbox type systems. And this brings us now to the vape pen. So if I go up on the unit, just like on the standard Henlong units where it'll either shoot the BB or it'll have the flash and recoil system, this one, it's going to do the flash, the recoil, and then you're going to get a little poof of smoke coming out of it. And it looks something like this. Hopefully I can keep this guy in focus, but if I hit the radio, as you can see, the system works just fine, just in my opinion, totally just keeping it honest. It's not really that realistic from what I've seen from real tanks shooting their main ordnance off, but hey ho, this is what's really all the rave today, and the system does have it in place. And the way it works is exactly as advertised. Back to the actual recoil section, one thing that you want to pay attention to when you're working on one of these models is to be careful how many layers of paint that you put on these sections over here. And this is something I always mention on the ArmorTech builds for the same reason. The more layers of paint you have on, the tighter the tolerances, the more the struggle the recoil system is going to have with actuating the unit itself. But as you can see, that's not an issue on this one here, and it works absolutely flawlessly. So this now brings us to the rotation. So that's just done with this stick over here. Left turns the tire left, right turns the tire right. All right. And then this brings us to main drive. Drive is single stick control, like it's customarily seen on basically all the other RTRs on the market. So forward, backward. You can neutral steer, which would be appropriate for a King Tiger, not a Sherman, but a King Tiger and Tiger 1s can indeed neutral steer. And then if you go to the left one corner, to the right one corner, one track slows down while the other one speeds up, which is again basic Caterpillar track type driving. As for speed control, a lot of people give these Taigen stock electronics crap because they don't have as much fine speed control as some hobby grade systems. Well, let's just see how that goes. So I'm going to give just a little bit of gas. You can hear the engine noise rev up. There we go. That is basically the slowest I can drive it. And then I'm going to gradually give it some more gas. And that's full speed. So that's it at a normal low gear type running. I'm going about a quarter way on the stick to do that. And then for fast running, I just gun it. The gearbox that this unit does have installed is the stock one, and the stock gear ratio I always found to be really good, and there was never really a problem with speed I personally find. Someone out there probably disagree with that, but from what I've seen when running these things, they run pretty well with these type of gear ratios. As for what gear ratio this is, I couldn't tell you, frankly. The way you have to go on the Taigen website, I'm pretty sure they'll have a thorough breakdown of the specs listed on there. So that's all there is to the controls themselves. These things are very simply laid out and are very intuitive. The one last thing I want to mention, you'll notice that the MG is not fitted in place at this time. Like I mentioned in the previous video, that is not yet glued on, that I'm going to reserve for the owner to do. So rather than having it potentially fall off and get lost, that's currently in the house, and I'm just going to run the model as is right now without the risk of any sort of potential oopsies on that. So with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and see what this thing can do. First, let me get the barrel at an appropriate height. All right. Let's go ahead and put some miles on these tracks. Wouldn't be any normal tank running video without the obligatory stick getting caught up in the fender. All right, enough of that. Let's go ahead and continue running. Also, mind you, I'm not really driving on full throttle. I'm only going about half throttle for this video, because generally in the past, whenever I do these videos, people love to comment that the tank's running too fast. Well, that's debatable, but just to show that, yes, the tank can drive a little bit more scalar speeds according to them, I'm going to be driving a little bit slower than normal. Like there's something caught up in the tracks, probably another stick. Give me a second. Okay, looks like whatever was in it worked itself out. So in the end, really, there's nothing much more I could have wanted or expected out of a 116 RC build. This model here was an absolute joy to work on from start to finish, and it was a build that went by pretty much effortlessly. Although there were some surprises, as I mentioned before in part 1, where there were some repairs that need to have been made to the rear hull area, but outside of that, the remainder of the build went by in a pretty much standard configuration or a standard way. There weren't really too many curveballs that were thrown, and for the most part, this thing was an absolute joy to work on. And part of the reason why I had such a pleasant experience with working on this one over here had also to do with, well, the short duration of time it took to go ahead and build this thing. These models build, and I should say rebuild, very, very quickly. And this isn't just a staple for the King Tiger here, but I also encountered this with the 2 Yag Tigers. These Yag Tiger / King Tiger models from Torro basically just need a little bit of polishing here and there, and they're almost ready for the races from that point onward. This has to do with a combination of just the relatively simplistic nature of a King Tiger, which is kind of ironic because the Germans had trouble making these things en masse because of shortages and how overly engineered they claim to be. But for a modeling standpoint, with the way Torro designed this kit, it's basically almost all there. There's really not that much extra stuff to add to it, which again really does cut down on the build time. Now, of course, I'm rolling with many of the stock details, such as the tools, the tow cables, the MG, and other things along those lines. And there are several people out there that can take this further from what I did over here, where they go ahead and replace the mentioned components with something that's either scratch built or made from an aftermarket type accessory that's either photo etch or 3D print or whatever. But at the end of the day, compared to something like the M1 Abrams from Henlong or the Tiger 1 or even the Shermans for that matter, the King Tiger here goes by very, very quickly. And again, this is a testament to just how good the starter model is from Torro. And that's only with the detail aspect of the build. The running aspect, well, these things just run really, really, really well. We're at a point, and we have been at a point, in my opinion, with these RTR 116 scale tanks where they're really good out of the box with the stock electronics. And yes, I know I'm going to have some RC fanboy or RC elitist out there scoff at that idea, because the first thing they do is they rip out the stock electronics and throw in a multitude of different aftermarket ones from one vendor or another. And if that's you, that's great. And again, it's another aspect that makes these models so enjoyable, is that you just have that flexibility to just go as custom as you want with it. However, if you're just wanting to just keep with the original electronic atmosphere that the thing gives you, you could do that too, and the things will run really, really well. There's really nothing much more you can want out of a radio controlled model. This thing runs great, and it builds even better. It's really ticking all the boxes. And it's safe to say that at this point we wandered into skill level and recommendation, kind of have been for some time. But from the get-go, if you're looking for a 116 scale radio controlled King Tiger, you'd be an absolute fool not to check one of these out or even add one to your collection. These models are absolutely superb. I'm really jealous. I kind of want one now, and I say that in every single one of these commission build videos. Seriously, every time I build a model, I have hearts coming out of me. I always want it. But even though that the point still stands, I would absolutely, in a heartbeat, grab another one of these without any sort of questions asked at all. If I ever see one that pops up on the scratch and dent, oh yeah, I'm jumping on that. But anyway, another thing to mention, as I was also for recommendations, if you're into the German ones, the German Zoo, King Tiger here is definitely recommended for you. If you're looking for, now this is in regards to the pre-painted one, just a finished model that is all right out of the box, not overly complex. Say you're the type of person that you're not a builder, you don't know how to paint stuff, you just want to open up the box and enjoy it as is, then this model here is definitely recommended, and I'll be circling back to that when in terms of competitive options. The model's operation performance I find to be excellent. The Torro one specifically has that nice gearbox in it. The electronics, even though some people would scoff and say they're basic, work fantastic. I absolutely have no reservations about keeping them. I would never replace them with anything else. I'll just put that out there. And they work. If you're just looking for a fun RC tank, these things are really well engineered. This one here has been upgraded with the with the vape pen system. I'm not sure if they come with that out of the box these days. I've been on the loop for a little while, but if that's something that tickles your fancy, obviously the owner here was able to install the piece on his own, and he had really good luck with it. The piece works actually very well, as we saw in the running portion. So again, these things are very, very adaptable. Another no-brainer recommendation would be anyone who's into collecting radio-controlled 1/16 scale models. If you have the other models from the Taigen or Torro lineup, like the Panzer III, the Tiger 1, the Panther G, or any of the other models that are in between, then the addition of the King Tiger here, again, is a complete and utter no-brainer. It is a fabulous model, and you will definitely enjoy it in your collection. Another person who I would also recommend this model to is anyone who's into tinkering with radio-controlled. If you're the type of guy that loves to mess with radio-controlled models, either airplanes, RC cars, or what have you, then these Taigen or Torro King Tigers here are definitely something to check out. As I mentioned before, there are lots of functional options that are on the market that can be added to this thing to improve it further from the way we have it here, like new gearboxes, new electronics, the different type of firing system, be it IR, the BB, or in this case here, the vape pen system. And all of these are really fun to mess around with, and they are on the market. So if you like to tinker with stuff, one of these models here are definitely also recommended. On a similar note, or backtrack a little bit, back to the German Zoo type guy, if you're a person that loves radio-controlled German tanks, but are looking for a simple German tank, which is kind of ironic using what a King Tiger here is reference, then this model here is definitely recommended. Unlike, say, an early production Tiger 1, where you have all of the fancy gizmos on the back with the FIFO system and things along those lines, those tend to get in the way and they kind of make getting access into the model a bit more problematic. Well, the King Tiger here is much more simplistic in that regard. It's like a lot like a Panther, and because of that, getting access into the model is also very simple. And because the model itself doesn't really have as many appendages on the outside, it also makes it very easy to work with, to take the model apart and to tinker with it from there. Even though this one here, I don't recommend taking apart anymore. That's why I built in those features that I mentioned earlier in the video. But again, the point still stands. If you're looking for a simple German tank to mess around with, the King Tiger here is actually a good choice. The very last thing I want to mention is probably something that someone's going to be wondering in the comment section, as well as I'm pretty sure there are some viewers out there that are thinking this themselves while watching this video series, and that is with competitive options. And in the 1/16 scale RC market, there are a total of 4 1/16 scale King Tiger models, this year's being one of them. And the one group of models that I am excluding from this list are the static kits from Trumpeter. The Trumpeter 1/16 scale King Tiger is absolutely exquisite. It's a beautiful model. It's probably the best one that has ever been made in this scale. It has full interior detailing and is just a work of art. However, that model is designed to be a static display piece from the get-go and is not designed to be radio controlled. And yes, I'm pretty sure some people out there are saying to themselves, or are going to type this in the comment section right now, yes, but John, those can be RC converted, or I know this guy who RC converted it, and that's all great and good. If that's something that you want to do, that's awesome. I have a lot of respect for people who can do that and who have done that. However, strictly speaking for this video series, I'm just referencing the models that are designed and are offered as radio controlled from the start. So the Trumpeter ones, as nice as they are excluded from this. And on the market, like I said before, there are 4 total. The Taigen Torro option here is one of them. What are the other 3? Well, we have the all-plastic version from Henglong. We have the all-metal version from Matto. And we also have the old school, the OG King Tiger kit from Tamiya. And all of these models here scratch a certain itch and offer something to the marketplace, and all of them are valid. The very first model I want to reference is the Henglong. The Henglong is the most affordable option on the market, and it's quite excellent. The model gives you a nice King Tiger, but for a price that is lower than all the other ones that are going to be mentioned on this list. The model comes pre-built, pre-painted, and it's literally ready to run. What's nice about the Henglong model, and this is same is true for all of the Henlongs, is that it allows you to get into the hobby, but do so for a budget. And if also you're looking for a model to run as a beater, where you just have fun with it and run it till the tracks fall off, You can't go wrong with a Henlong. The Henlong model itself is also a phenomenal canvas and a base to work off of. Even though the model is all plastic and a lot of people out there are turned off by that, but what's great about the plastic model is that you can then upgrade accordingly with all of the metal components that are on the market, and you get to cherry pick which metal parts work best for you, as not all the metal parts out there are created equally. In fact, almost all of the metal components found on the Taigen brand of King Tigers will work on the Henlongs, and you could then basically upgrade and hot rod it to your heart's content. The next model to mention is the one from Tamiya. The Tamiya King Tiger is, again, the oldest on the market and has been on the market now since about the late 1970s or so. In fact, it's one of the, again, the original gangsters of the 1/16 scale tank world. It was that, the Leopard, the Gepard, and the Sherman. That was ground zero for this hobby. So in that respect, it is very noteworthy. The model has been on the market in several renditions ever since, from a radio control clutch control system from the 1970s, which, by the way, I have done a video on one. It's really, really cool how that thing works. Also, in recent years, they have re-released it a couple times with using a DMD system, and then later on, Tamiya upgraded it with a full option package using more advanced electronics to have things like turret rotation, elevation, sound, smoke, or not so much smoke, but sound, and also the barrel recoil and stuff along those lines. And for the longest time, that was actually the most expensive one on the market, and I believe it still is. The other thing to mention about the Tamiya is that it is a complete kit. Unlike these ones here that are RTRs, that one you actually have to build it from plastic parts and put it together and have fun with it. And that's awesome. The next thing to mention is the one from Matto. The Matto King Tiger, its claim to fame is as 100% made from metal. So if you're one of those people out there that it has to be metal, I don't care, metal or nothing, then the Matto is most certainly going to be for you. The price of the Matto is also on the higher end because of the materials that it's made in, but again, it's one of those things you get what you pay for. Now, the Matto is, even though it's all metal, it's all made out of die cast, and many of the components are very similar to the ones here on the Taigen. The Matto also comes with a electronics package that is a Clark board. For those that are interested, a lot of people like to use the Clark and upgrade these models here with Clark or Almod. And if that's you, well, then maybe you might want to take a look at the Matto example and roll with that. Then we have here, of course, the Taigen. The Taigen one, just like with the Tiger one, is kind of it bridges the gap. It's in the middle. It's in between the Tamiya, or actually, no, I should say it's in between the Matto and the Henlong. The model is a hybrid type assembly where some of it's plastic, but some of it's metal. In my opinion, the important bits are made out of metal, and the other parts being plastic don't really cause any sort of detriment or any other problems. In my opinion, the Taigen Toro version of the King Tiger is actually basically on par with the Tamiya one. In many aspects, the two are a wash where they're basically identical in terms of quality and what they give you. And in some areas, the Taigen's actually much more improved. Case in point, the Taigen has the best tracks, in my opinion. The tracks on the Taigen example are superior to the original Tamiya ones. The original Tamiya ones have an open hinge for the track. It just had the way the molding machines had to operate back in the day. They have a faux hinge, and basically just you have like these open clasps on the bottom, and it really hurts the look, in my opinion. Oddly enough, you can buy the tracks from Taigen, put them on a Tamiya, and they will work. But anyway, outside of that, the Taigen also has better road wheels. These road wheels here are all made out of die cast, while the Tamiya ones are a hybrid. The rim itself is metal, while the face is made out of plastic. The Taigen, in my opinion, from what I've seen from the Tamiya King Tigers I personally worked on, has a superior track tensioning system. The original track tensioner on the Tamiya King Tigers left a lot of room to be desired. In fact, I strongly recommend getting an aftermarket idler tension kit for it because, again, they're really not that great. With little springs and stuff, they're awful. The Taigen is also on par with the Tamiya, where you get a complete stamped sheet metal lower hull. You get the die-cast swing arms, and you also have a die-cast sprocket and idler. Those are absolutely on par with the Tamiya. The original Tamiya King Tiger did not have sponsons on them. That is a ding on the old, really old kits from the 70s. However, I believe Tamiya may have revised that in later models. A little hazy on that, but either way, this guy here does have sponsons, so that is a nice improvement. This fella here also has an all die-cast turret, which again, to some people out there, that is relevant. Me personally, I would go either way. If it has the metal turret, cool, I'm not going to replace it. If it has a plastic turret, cool, I'm not going to replace it. But that's just me. Me personally, when I do these rebuilds like on a Henlong or even on the plastic editions, I basically just upgrade the track, the gearbox, and the running gear to metal. That's really where it's important. As for the other parts being plastic, for me, it doesn't really make a difference one way or another. But some people out there, they like the metal turret. It does help settle the model down. It does increase the weight immensely, which can give you some better traction, and it does make the model look a little bit better when rolling over rough terrain. Although, in my opinion, it's marginal, but hey, it's still a data point regardless. But having said that, again, the Taigen example here gives you more metal components. You have the metal mantlet, the turret, as well as several of the other fittings on the model, like the hatches, are also made out of die cast for good measure. Obviously, if you want to roll with the Matto variant, all of that is still true. And basically, like I like to recommend, if you're wanting to scratch that armor tech itch, but you do not have the money for an armor tech, well then the Matto is a nice compromise. Get the Matto, you have that all-metal tank itch, and you should be alright for at least 6 months until that 1/6 scale bug turns around and starts popping up again. But that's a story for another day. One aspect where the Tamiya does shine, and it is an improvement compared to the other ones on the market, is the Tamiya does not have the side skirts integrally molded on. This is something found on all of the other RTRs on the market. I believe the Matto also included, if I'm not mistaken. Why this is relevant is that if you're the type of model builder that wants to depict this thing with a skirt or two off or all missing entirely, which by the way, King Tigers look really sexy like that, then the Tamiya one might be the better choice of action because it gives you that from the start. Otherwise, if you're trying to convert any of the other ones into that format, it can be done, but it is going to require an extensive amount of work to do so. You have to amputate the fender off, and then you have quite a substantial amount of body work that's required over here because we have this section of the tin work integrally molded on, and it adds thickness over here, and this is something that has to be addressed. Can it be done? Yes, but it does require a lot of body work and, most importantly, technical knowledge to know how to do that. If that's you, rock on. However, if that's not you and you're just looking for a simple build where you want to display the thing with the side skirts missing, then that, my friend, you want to roll with a Tamiya. Also, one major difference between the Tamiya and the other options on the market is that all the other ones come with the radio equipment. The Tamiya gives you all the electronics, sans the radio. So that is something that you do need to purchase yourself on your own. And as for which radio works for that model, there are a lot of other people out there that go into that in far more depth than on this channel. But rest assured, that is, again, something that you need to consider if you're going to roll with the Tamiya. On another note, and this is one that's quite substantial to mention, is that as we saw before, and as you can see right here in this video, the Taigen example of the King Tiger has the Zemerite anti-magnetic coating integrally molded into the hull. Not on the turret, oddly enough, but it's on the hull. And why this is relevant and important to mention is that if you are modeling a King Tiger and the version that you want to build does not have the Zemerite coating, then obviously the Taigen is not going to be the best choice for your build, and you're definitely going to want to look elsewhere. Either get a Henlong and upgrade from there, or you want to roll with the Tamiya or the Matto. Whichever one is going to suit that build is going to be better compared to the Taigen, because again, the other ones do not have Zemerite at all found on these sections. And on the flip side, if the King Tiger that you're wanting to build does have the Zemerite, well then obviously the Taigen is the way to go. Back in the day, if you wanted to Zemerite your King Tiger, specifically on the Tamiya one, you had to go ahead and sculpt the whole thing yourself. And a lot of people did that, and a lot of people learned how to Zemerite because of that. But rest assured, times have caught up, and if you, well, not necessarily you have to do it to the turret, but it's easier to do it to the turret compared to doing it to the entire model. But either way, if you are looking for a King Tiger with Zemerite, then the Taigen I would recommend all day long. And there's nothing much more needs to be said about that, which is the perfect point to wrap up this 3-part video series on the 1/16 scale radio-controlled German King Tiger heavy tank. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to this channel, where it's a great way to keep up to date on new posted content, being, well, the other 2 installments on this video series, as well as the smaller scale model showcase videos and my larger 1/6 scale project update videos that frequently get posted. Another way to keep in the loop of new posted content is by liking us on Facebook, where I have more photographs of this particular model, as well as photographs of the other smaller and larger scale builds that have been seen on this channel in the past. Furthermore, don't forget to swing by eastcoastarmory.com for more 1/6 and 1/16 scale builds and detail components. Thanks again. I'll be seeing you all again on the next one. Till then.